Hello, everyone. Am I there?
Hello.
Yes? Okay, good deal. All right. Welcome to you out there in internet land. Thanks for tuning in. If you are tuning in, if you're not tuning in, you're not hearing this. So anyway, and that was a reminder for everybody to silence their phone, since I had to silence my phone. So anyway, I'm glad you're all here. Thank you. I think we've got some good stuff for tonight. I want to start off with the bracelets. We have bracelets here for time to celebrate what you're working on, whether it's drugs, alcohol, pornography, gambling, cigarettes, you name it. Okay, whatever it is, and you don't have to tell us. But the fact of it is, we want to celebrate your clean time with you. Is there anybody here that would like a bracelet of clean time? We have white for just for today, up to 30 days, 30 days and more for is orange, 60 days is green, maroon is 90, blue is 6 months, yellow 9 months, glow in the dark 1 year, gray is 18 months, black is 2 years, silver is 5 years, gold is 10 years or more. Anybody? If you out there in internet land would like one, all you have to do is come down to our live meeting here. It's where our address is 423 Main in the alley entrance. We have a sign that has a symbol like that. Does that come up very good? Well, anyway, it's similar to that. How about that? And you come in off the alley. There's some parking in the alley. There's some parking up north in the alley, and then there's parking all over. And you come in the alley door, and we have another sign pointing here to the basement where we are. Anyway, you can come and get one of these bracelets and be in our live meeting. We welcome you to that. Everybody is welcome to our live meeting, even if you're high or drunk or angry or whatever you are. That's your stuff. We accept you, but we may not like your stuff. You don't like your stuff. Nobody likes. None of us like our own stuff. So, but we welcome you, and we welcome all of you. Okay, right?
Right.
And so we are going to. We're going to finish up tonight. Can you believe that? We're going to finish up step 4. All right, we've been on step 4. I think this is our 5th week on step 4 because we have 5 Saturday nights in this month, which is April, which is the 4th month. That's the reason why we do step 4 in April. And then next month, which is next week, we'll be starting off with step 5. And today we're going to finish up with step 4, which is we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. You know, we have to check on ourselves. We have to, see where we're at. Take that inventory, positive and negative, and to locate ourselves so that we can see what we're going to do. And in fact, hopefully we get to it tonight when I talk about relapse and how to prevent relapse. We're going to talk about that one of the very important aspects of preventing relapse is to check on yourself. Right. Check in with yourself. Some people call it mindfulness. Okay, that's was Barney Fife's. I think he said, take a think, I think is what he always said. Is that about what Barney Fife said? Take a think? Yeah. And so you need to stop and think for a moment, and we'll talk more about that, but one of the things that that I want to hit on is that we need to stop and we need to think about what we're thinking, what we're feeling emotionally, feeling in our body, if there's something bothering us. If something is good, if something's bad, so that you can be aware of what's going on with you, so that you're not operating blind. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so if you don't, if you're clueless, then things can blindside you pretty easily. So that's the reason why, and we'll talk more about that later. So anyway, a section that I normally do is thoughts, questions, and quotes. And I'm going to read a couple of quotes before I get to the questions. Is that all right? One of my favorite guys is Jordan Peterson. In fact, I'm going to go down, my son-in-law and I are going to go down to see Jordan Peterson next month in Tulsa. He's touring around, and back in November or December, my daughter bought tickets, and so he and I are going. So anyway, I don't know. Anybody know Jordan Peterson? You don't know Jordan Peterson? Man, I thought everybody knew Jordan Peterson. Well, anyway, Jordan Peterson said this, okay? He said that there may be a shortage of knowledge, but there is no shortage of ignorance.
Well, that's deep.
Okay, then of course Jordan Peterson is alive because we're going to go see him. But this next guy is William James. Anybody heard of William James, the psychologist? He's the father of psychology. William James. Okay, he said this: human beings, by changing their inner attitude of their minds, can change the outer aspects of their lives. That seemed to hit a little harder when we read it again.
Yes.
Okay, William James, the father of psychology here, he said, human beings, by changing the inner attitudes of their minds, can change the outer aspects of their lives. That's extremely powerful, and that's the reason why I try to motivate and compel you here in the room and for you out there in internet land to learn. And that's one of the things about relapse. Relapse is caused by a lack of education, right? That's the primary issue, is because how are you supposed to know how to function if you don't have the information? If you're void of the facts or the information or the things to look for, how to do it. I mean, yes, you know what you know, but you don't know what you don't know. So how are you supposed to change and be different if you don't know? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So learning and growing and developing, and that enhances the possibility of not having that relapse, okay? And or when you recognize, and we'll be talking about the three stages of relapse hopefully later. We've talked about it before, but hopefully we wind that up tonight. But because the first stage is emotional relapse, and if you don't know that you're in emotional relapse and you don't do anything about it, if you don't take care of yourself, if you don't deal with it, if you're not looking at the signs, it's like the stop sign that's at the corner. If you don't see it and act appropriately, you're going to run the stop sign and maybe cause a wreck, kill somebody, or kill yourself maybe, who knows, or at least have an accident, or get a ticket, or go to jail, or something, right? Something. Or maybe that may be true. And so if we don't recognize the signs, and that requires education, if we don't recognize the signs, that requires education, and then we have to do something about it, because if you don't, then you are in an emotional relapse. And then you go into the mental relapse, and then you go into the physical relapse. So here, we'll talk more about that later. So So, and fortunately, if we understand the signs, then we can take action. Would you agree with that? Okay. I'm sorry, I kind of waded off in that information. I'm going to talk later, but I may not have you later. So that kind of works out that way sometimes. All right, questions. I'm going to start off with a new question about how to relapse and how to prevent relapse. And by the way, this is part 7 of relapse. And it is, I want you to think about, because I'm going to ask this question again. What got you started on your addiction or acting out behavior? What got you started? What initiated? What triggered it? What was the activating event? Do you understand the question, right? Why did you begin? What precipitated those actions? You know, one of the things that they do in working with folks that go into rehab, and if you've been in rehab, probably they've asked you this question. I would assume they'd ask you this question. I understand they do ask this question in rehab, is, you know, how did you get started? You know, because if you don't know how you got started, then you're missing some facts about yourself. And the more you know about you, the better off you can deal with yourself. Because that's what recovery is all about, is restoring yourself, healing yourself. And when you heal yourself, when you deal with the issues, the problems, the pain, the trauma, then that puts you in a different place to deal with the actual addictive substance, behavior, whatever. Is that too much? Got real quiet. Good. So, all right. So think about that, because I'll give you a chance to respond here in a minute. All right. What causes relapse? Not just your relapse. That basically that was something. But what causes relapse? Any new insights? Because we've asked this question for several weeks now. Anxiety, yes. That can do it. Fear, most definitely. Pain.
Mental, physical, emotional.
All kinds. It can. Doesn't have to though, right?
Doesn't have to, no.
Right? We do have a choice. We had a pretty good discussion on that last week about, you know, we always have a choice. Do we not always have a choice?
Yes. Relapse starts in the mind.
Well, according to the stages, it starts emotionally.
Yeah.
And then it goes into the mental. But actually, it's pretty cyclical. You know, there are a lot of stuff there. What are the common triggers for relapse? What are the common triggers? What would be the common trigger? Anybody want to?
Drugs.
Drugs would be a common trigger for relapse. Yeah.
Anger.
Could be anger. What would be your common trigger for relapse? Anybody bold enough to say?
Oh, come on, I got
Disappointment.
Ignorance.
Do what? I couldn't hear you.
Ignorance.
Ignorance.
Thinking you can handle it.
That can set you up, Ken. One more time. Yeah, I can handle it. I've done so good for so long that one more time I can handle it.
I handle one.
Yeah. One and then another and then another. It can set you up, and we'll talk more about that later. What does it mean if you relapse? Do these questions sound differently, even though we've gone over them several times? Or?
Go back to step one, start over.
What does it mean if you relapse? Well, I already told you, one meaning is that you have insufficient information. You're insufficient in your education of what's going on with you and with those around you, right? What your triggers are, what you're susceptible for, or what your weak places are. That you're, like you said, step one, that my life is out of control and this problem is not manageable. I can't manage it, right? Heather, you had your hand up?
No, I know I've said it before, but like, this is the longest I've been sober since I was 13, and so you keep hitting on lack of knowledge. Like, the further I go, I'm like a child learning,
Right.
like learning all this different stuff,
Mhm.
especially with God. Like, one of my biggest regrets is a long time ago not trusting God and going further into it, because the further I go into it, the more I learn. It's like a whole different world to me. I don't know if I'm saying it right.
Well, can I restate it?
Yes,
Maybe
please.
help you? And that is that it's not like, it is a different world, okay? Because it's kind of like moving from Mars to Venus. It's totally different. There are some similarities, but there's a lot of differences. And you're having to learn life on life's terms from a different perspective and a different desire, okay? And so you had to, that's one of the, I thought of your statement, Steve, about, I just had to learn life, learn how to live, and live according to these life laws and rules that are in my best interest. And I don't want to be negative on anybody because of, in the sense that most of our past behaviors, if I said most, and probably all, were connected to just trying to survive, because that's all we knew. We are designed, God designed for us to try to survive. And we find if you hadn't found a way to survive, you wouldn't be here, or you wouldn't be watching on the video. So your survival mechanism got you here. Now the trouble is, what helped maybe you to survive, maybe it worked for you, but the problem is that it maybe wasn't the healthiest choice, but it was at least a choice that helped you to survive. And but what happens is, after we learn a mechanism to survive, then we use it on everything after that. Because if it worked once, it ought to work for everything. And we all know that that's not really the way that it is. In fact, the more you use it, the less effective it becomes, and the more costly it comes, and the more negative effects that there are. Right? Does that make sense? But it's hard to see it when there's a part of our brain saying, well, it works, it's good, well, it was good, even though it's not good right now, I know it's still good, and it's my answer, it's my hero, I gotta still have it. And a lot of people, they get hooked on that, and because it did help them at one time to live. But the fact of it is, we have to go past those unhealthy survival mechanisms and find healthy mechanisms to survive, and then mechanisms to not just survive, but to thrive, right? And to go ahead and live and come out from that stuck place. And addictive substances and behaviors and systems, did you hear me? I said systems, want to hold us and keep us there, and we want to stay there because there's some comfort there, but there's also a lot of sickness there, and we at least know that system is familiar to us. And the healthier system is scary to us because it's less familiar. And we're afraid we don't know how to live in that other planet.
Right.
But the fact of it is, if we stay on the planet where we've been, we're not going to live,
Right.
right?
We're not gonna thrive anyways, we might survive, but we're not gonna thrive.
Well, your survival is being diminished. In fact, I don't usually like to cite negative things, but all, substances, alcohol, drugs, they take out of you. They take out of you mentally, emotionally, physically. They destroy your body. They take years off your life.
Yes.
It clicks time off. Now none of us know how long we're going to live, but there is definite research that shows that it does diminish your life, and it takes time off of your life. But we can't do anything about the past. All we can do is deal with the present, which is going to affect our future. The good thing about this body that God gave us, He has put redundant systems in there to help us to regenerate and restore. Now, depending on how much time we have and how well we do it, is how well our body is able to come back. But there is some restoration. There is always been some restoration. But the fact of it is, if we stay in that world, we're going to die. And I kind of got drug off there in the weeds again, didn't I? All right, let's go to the next question. Why do people relapse when things are good? We've talked about this several times. Why?
Well, I can handle it.
You can handle, that's
One more time.
yeah, I celebrate, I can handle it, I always refer to McDonald's theme, you deserve a break today,
Yeah.
okay? Treat yourself, and of course, with an addictive mindset, your treat is your addiction, right? Because you still have addictive mindset, and you're an addict as long as you have an addictive mindset.
Yeah.
You agree with that statement? I haven't used that one for a long time. But anyway, you have addictive mindset. Now, can you change that mindset? Yes, you can. It takes a lot of work. It takes some time. It takes some practice. A lot of practice. Practice, practice, practice. Right? Practice makes not perfect, but permanent. All right? All right. Will I always be in danger of relapse?
Yes.
Yes, we will. And the more addictive mindset you have, the more danger you're in. How about that statement? Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. All right, so my first question when I come back up is I'm going to ask what got you started on your addictive path, okay? And if you have something you'd like to share, in fact, you could even talk about that in our open mic night, if you wish. You don't have to, but that's one of the things I'll be talking about. But if you guys all talk about it sufficiently, then I guess I won't have to. I can just go on home. Okay. All right. So we're going to go to Rick. Rick's going to read the 12 steps for us here. So I want you to welcome Rick. He's going to come up and read the 12 steps for us, and then we're going to go to Willie.
Good evening.
Evening.
Okay, step one. We admitted that we were powerless over our problems, that our life had become unmanageable. Romans 7:18. 2. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Philippians 2:13. 3. Made a decision to turn our wills and our lives over care of God, Romans 12:1. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves, Lamentations 3:40. 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to other human beings the exact nature of our wrongs, James 5:16. 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character, James 4:10. 7, we humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings, 1 John 1-9. 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all, Luke 6:31. 9, we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others, Matthew 5:23. 10, we continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 1 Corinthians 10:12. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of His will and the power to carry it out, Colossians 4:2. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all of our affairs, Galatians 6:1. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it, Rick.
Good evening. I am going to be doing step 4, finger pointing, which is Matthew 7:1-5. Do not judge others, and you will not be judged, for you will be treated as you treat others. The standard you use in judging is the standard in which you would be judged. And why worry about a speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? How can you think of saying to your friend, let me help you get rid of the speck in your eye, when you can't see past the log in your own eye? Hypocrite. First, you have to get rid of the log in your own eye, and you will see well enough to get rid of the speck in your friend's eye. To me, God is telling me that you want to help everybody else, but you can't see because, hey, I'm helping you, so they ain't looking at my problems. Then when they see my problems, hey, well, he did it, Let's look at his problems, and mine can go on by mine without seeing them, The little side note over here says that there have probably been times when you have ignored your own sins and problems and pointed the finger at someone else. We may be out of touch with our internal affairs because we are still blaming others for our moral choices. Perhaps we avoid self-examination by making a moral inventory of the people around us. I've read that every day this week, and it changes every time I read it.
That's a positive sign.
Oh, man. Sorry about that, guys. I gotta figure this out. Let's go to the questions.
Okay.
Is it changing again, Willie?
Stump me. I'm gonna mess up. I know it. Question 1 under finger pointing. Is it easier to look at the faults and shortcomings of other people in my life, past and present, than to recognize my own? Yeah, sure. It's real easy.
Right,
Because if I'm looking at theirs, then they ain't looking at mine.
right.
So I don't have to worry about all that. Question 2. What is the log in my eye, the blind spot that has caused me trouble in giving rise to pride, finger pointing, and eventually addiction? I've had trouble with this one, but deep down, I guess it's acceptance would have to be the answer to that one. That's all you try for is acceptance, and when it don't happen, well, you got by with it, why can't I? And 3, when and where have I stepped on people's toes and invited retaliation? Have I been proud, blamed, or fearful? Be honest, I can't answer that one right now. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm done.
Thank you, Willie. Appreciate it.
Well, we all do it, and if you say you don't, you're lying. We all point fingers. But when we point a finger at somebody else, we've got 3 fingers pointing back at us. So we've got to look at our lives. We need to manage our lives instead of trying to manage others' lives. We need to take care of ourselves instead of trying to take care of others. You know, and instead of trying to fix somebody else's wagon, we fix our own wagon. But we need to do a lot of self-care and self-meditation on what we're dealing with, and look inward instead of outward. That's all.
Thank you, John.
Yep.
Well, when John was talking there, and Willie too, I had some new thoughts that I hadn't thought of when I was studying this, and that was our blind spots, okay? And what this scripture was talking about is having something in our life or in our eye, which is what the scripture was talking about, a log. One translation says beam in our eye, but we don't want to recognize it, but we see little spots in everybody else. Does that make sense? And so it's a distraction avoidance technique to try to point out everybody else is wrong. But I want to go back to my statement because I was about to get off track there. This new thought I had about blind spots. We have and that maybe the log has been there so long we don't even realize it's there.
Right.
Is my thought that I have looked around it. I've avoided seeing it. I don't want to see it, and so I direct my attention. But the thing of it is, the log also causes me not to see what that log is covering up, the blind spot. That's what it's talking about, the blind spot. In other words, sometimes I've heard this said, and I probably have said things similar to this, is how come these type people always take advantage of me? Or why do I let this happen to me all the time? And you would think that it happened enough in my life that I should be able to recognize it when it's coming. That could be a blind spot. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Let's talk about it in the sense of addiction, substance abuse issues. I've heard it from many people. Well, these people that I just have been taking drugs with or drinking with, they're my friends. And so they're my friends, and I can't see the negative effects. They don't say this, but what they're inferring to is I don't see the negative effects that these friends will have on me in my addictive behaviors. Right?
Right.
I don't see what's going on. I know folks that they fall prey to things all the time where they're taken advantage of. Okay, they don't see the situation that they're walking into clearly. They don't recognize the danger to themselves. Whether it's you can come on down if you like. You're welcome to. We got some coffee on if you like some.
You just said something I heard over the speaker outside that I haven't heard in a long time, that my grandfather and my dad told me. When you point one finger, remember you got 3 pointing back at it.
Yep, that's the truth.
I'm 54 years old, and that brought back some good things.
All right.
I
Well,
just want to thank you.
well, you're welcome. You're welcome to stay on the stairs or come on in. It's entirely up to you.
I'd love to, but I got a 72-year-old man down here. He's not from around here. He's depending on me to get there, show him where he needs to be. He just a couple blocks down here at Water Garden. How long you gonna be here?
Well, we'll be closing up in 45 minutes.
I got short legs, but I believe I can make that walk. He got a big eagle sitting there. We drive back.
Well, we're here every Saturday night.
All right. Thank y'all very much. I greatly appreciate it.
All right. So the blind spot. People have blind spots. They just can't see what's there, even though it's happened to them so many different times. How many times have I've talked to folks that said, I remember this one lady I talked to many years ago. She'd been married 4 or 5 times, and in fact, she was even still married, but she was living with another guy, and she was talking to me, and she realized as she was talking to me that she had a pattern in her life of the people that she had married and associated with. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And you know, I had another lady who said, my picker's broke, okay? And so that was somebody else, just that flashed in my head there. But you know, and the thing of it is, that means we have a blind spot. And that's the reason why looking at our triggers and what has triggered us is so important, because then that helps to reveal to us our blind spots.
Right.
Am I making any type of sense? Do I? Yeah.
Mike, I don't know how, okay, like, you know, you're talking about blind spots. Well, okay, like, you know, we see things, or we point things at, you know, but also, we have blind spots as well, don't we? Like, we don't see things in ourselves that other people see in us.
Absolutely. And in fact, their psychological fact is that to be able to notice those things in other people is an indication that you have the same thing in your own life,
Right.
but we don't recognize it.
Right.
We have a hard time seeing it if we don't have it. That's the reason why I believe that the scripture talks about in John, judge not, lest you be judged. Because in the manner that you judge, you'll be judged, okay? Because your judgment is also judging yourself, because there's a good probability that you have the same stuff in your own life that you're judging. So, a lesson that I learned many years ago that I'm still working on, I'm still learning it, okay? So don't get me wrong here. That I needed to stop the judgment and pray and bless people for those things that I see. And if they ask for help, then I am slowly willing to give it to them. The reason I said that on purpose. You know why I said slowly willing to give it to them? Because people, when they ask for help the first time, they're not really wanting help. They want help, but they don't really want help. You know what I mean? You know, it's kind of like I've saved several people from drowning, and the first thing they do, they scream for help, but the first thing they do is they push you down, right? You know, they really don't want help, they just don't want to die. I like one lady that used to come to Saturday Night Live and said, I come here just to keep from dying, you know, and we just want to keep her from dying, you know, because that's the first step of help, okay, and then helping to resolve these issues in her life helped her. But go back 2 or 3 stories here. Sorry, back to the lady that had 5 husbands and was living with a guy, and that she realized that, you know, that she had some issues. But she wasn't really for sure what they were, because up to that point it was all their fault, right? You know what I mean? And I'm not saying they didn't have some fault in it, and she had her picker ability was not too good either, but the fact of it is she needed to recognize her blind spots. Okay, you want to say something else?
I just wanted to say that what I'm trying to say is that, like, the good things in people that they don't see, often others see them though.
And that's true. That's absolutely true. And I am still convinced if we're able to see the good things, they're in us too. But the crappy piece of information here is we are a mixture. Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
Because we are a sum total of good parts and bad parts, right? Right? And that's the way we are, because we're human, right? And humans are flawed. But our imperfections causes us to be unique, which is what really gives us, like a diamond's value is established by those unique qualities that it has, which oftentimes may look like a flaw, but it's what sets it apart and can cause it to have even greater value. And I think that's the way it is with we humans, but we have a hard time recognizing and appreciating our flaws, because we see them only in a bad connotation. And I said we, right? We is me too. So, and I'm working on it, right?
Flaws, if we notice them, they're good, right?
Say it again.
Flaws, if we notice them, can work for our good, correct?
Absolutely. We recognize them, and they can be a real benefit to our life, but recognize them in the sense of not hating ourselves for the flaw, but appreciating that I have that, and if I may need to overcome some of that, because one of my flaws is the ability to read real well, and but because I had the inability to read very well, particularly in school, I developed the ability to listen real well and connect dots pretty well. And one of my things that I help myself with is when my wife went back to college, she went back to school with another lady, and they were going to college at the same time, and they were taking a literature class, and they couldn't understand the stories, okay? And I said, well, and she says, I want you to listen to this story and tell me what it means. I said, well, what do you think how do you know I know what the story means? She says, because you will. And I said, okay, all right. So we'd go through the story, and I'd tell her what I think it means. She would take notes. She would take her notes to the other lady and read her the notes, and they would both take a test on the story. And the lady that Linda told the story to made even better grades than Linda did on the story. Maybe it's because she was able to add some of her perception to it. Also, I don't know, but the fact of it is they both made A's and B's.
Thanks to you.
And because well, that's what they said. And so, but the fact of it is, I'm saying my flaw I think maybe enhanced my ability to listen, to gain information, and always and possibly my curiosity, because I was always wanting to learn, and I do want to learn. That sometimes that's a trouble spot in my life and a frustration spot, because I want to learn so much, because the more I learn, the more I find out that there's way more stuff that I don't even know, and I want to know. Does that make sense? And so, but I made a deal with God a long time ago. If He would help me to gain that understanding, that I would take that and try to give it to others. And hopefully I'm doing some of that tonight, maybe. You know, so that's my desire. So these blind spots, they're there, and we need to be aware, just like triggers, that they're there, and that we need to look for our blind spots. And it's hard to see our blind spots, but they've been there so long, you think they're normal stuff. And it's hard, but it's healthy. All right. I forgot we was going to have open mic. So I'll shut up here and say it's open mic night time. Who would like to start us with open mic? You don't have to come up here. You can stay where you're at if you like. I think it would be nice if you came up here, but that's you can make me mad if you want to. And I'll move the mic back behind the podium if somebody wants to do that. Who wants to be first? Anybody have something they'd like to share? How about if I give you a topic? How has Saturday night helped you? How about that? That would be a good topic, right? Or what started you on your addictive path?
To fit in.
Say it again.
To fit in.
To fit in, okay.
To fit in crowd.
Yeah, all right.
I was a freshman hanging with juniors, and they started saying, Renee, you want to take some drugs with us? And that's my 40-some years.
To fit into the peer group,
Yeah.
peer pressure, to be liked, which is according to Maslow, is part of the hierarchy of needs, is to be accepted,
Yeah.
to belong, or at least not be rejected. And so that is a common gateway, let's say. Anybody else? Did you have anything else to say? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, just like,
All right, thank you. Anybody else?
Can I share what I learned last week?
Sure. You want to come up here? Or you want to...
I'll just stay here. There was a lady here last week, and she was talking about wanting to help these people and put herself in danger at the same time.
Can everybody hear all right? Okay.
herself in danger.
Wanting to help people, but it was putting herself.
There.
Yeah, I want you to come up here.
Come on.
You want me to put this back here? You want to?
I step right up there.
I'm a little less intimidated here.
Okay.
Okay, last week I came in and there was this lady that was really, really sad. And she was talking about wanting to help people and she was putting herself at risk for doing meth, wanting to help people. And she was saying that she didn't have a choice, and Doug was trying to point out to her that she did have a choice. And so that really resonated with me. And I like put myself at risk wanting to help my ex-husband. And I put myself in some pretty dangerous situations in order to help him. And at times felt like I didn't have any choice, but I do have a choice. But that lady really, really helped me last week. I don't know, it really stuck with me and made me realize that I have a choice in this situation and not to put myself around people that are gonna put me in danger. And so I don't think I really realized that until I seen it in somebody else.
Good.
Right.
Let me ask you a question about that. Would you classify that as a blind spot?
That is a major blind spot.
All right, thank you. Yeah. All right, give her a big hand. Thanks for doing that. Appreciate that. Anybody else?
Can I just say something from here? One of the things about Saturday Night Live that I've always appreciated was you come down here and be transparent. You can talk about things, and I've talked about a lot of things down here, and and you unburden yourself a lot by being able to come to a place and talk openly without fear of rejection or finger pointing or whatever the case may be. And on the other hand, the way that I think my addiction got started, I'm not sure, but I was going to ask you, can you have more than one thing that can set you? I think what set mine off, maybe fitting in, but then, and I'm not blaming anyone, my parents weren't very active in my life, so once I did start using, then I discovered that, acting out could get me attention. If that means going to jail to have somebody come down and bail me out, but usually the way it worked on my part was, just tough it out, it'll be okay. So you keep doing it. And then it becomes a repetitive cycle where you just end up, spending your way into jail, sit in jail, get out, And you just, you know what I'm saying? It's like a merry-go-round. You just stay on until you run out.
You build a system and then you stay in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I don't know.
So the answer to the question, how you got on that path was?
I believe it to be just trying to get attention.
Get attention.
Sometimes.
Okay.
Positive or negative.
Yes. Well,
In my case, it became pretty much negative.
well, they've always said that they make reference to kids that everyone likes attention. All kids
Right.
want and need attention because we all need attention, right? And they will take negative attention if they can't get positive attention.
Right.
So, good, thank you. Anybody else? How you got started or what you get out of Saturday Night Live?
I covered both.
I know, you did awesome.
Saturday Night Live is my home. It's where I've bounced in and out of for 15 years. I mean, this is, I don't know, other people on AA, NA, they talk about their home meeting. This is my home meeting. This is where I belong. It's my home. And I've come in here drunk, high, you've seen me in awful shape.
no matter what kind of condition that I've been in throughout the years, I've always been accepted here,
Yes.
always. I mean, I love Saturday Night Live.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I
And
like that too.
Yeah, I like that too.
Pretty good one too.
Doug's always right.
It's a process. I don't.
Ricky, you was gonna say something?
Yeah, the answer to your question, what got me started was a little bit of a combination between Steve, what Steve and Nick both said, you know. When I started out being bounced around quite a bit when I was a kid, you know, I was seeking attention myself, you know, only I was getting bad attention. I think a lot of mine was rebellion. Just being rebellious with my parents and everybody, you know, they said, don't do that, I'm gonna do it. You know, but I wanted also, I needed to fit in somewhere. You know, I
And
needed
that is a
to-
human need.
Yeah.
And your rebellion, oftentimes rebellion comes because of roots of anger or resentment.
Right.
Right.
So, and so you're saying those things were the contributing factors to what started you on your journey of addiction. Okay, all right.
I did the same thing, just to fit in.
Yeah.
I got with my first husband when I was so young, and everybody that I was around was like 12 years older than me. And so I was drinking to fit in, I was smoking pot to fit in, doing drugs to fit in, you know, to do what they were doing,
Right.
you know, because of rebellion, because I was a throwaway child, and my dad, well, I can't even go into there, it's too humiliating to say what I wanna say about my dad, I'm not going there. But I basically trying to fit in.
Right. That's the way it was with me. You know, and also, you know, my dad gave me my first drink
Yeah,
at 9 years old, for Christ's sake, you know. I thought it was the thing to do, you know, it was all right to do that.
You know, and that, as I was thinking about this question for myself, you know, my grandfathers, grandpas, both were what was called back in those days winos. Now, it didn't, you know, they were my grandpas. I'm not saying that they were what they were. And my parents, you know, just drank all the time, and, you know, and so, you know, it's, when something is, presented to you and modeled in front of you as a norm, similar to what you said, different words, but same idea, it's, you know, I think it allows you to reproduce what you already know.
right.
And because it's what you know, right? Even though I knew they didn't want me to drink, but yet that's what they did, so it's what we did. And so, you know, I also was thinking about a young man many years ago, and a long time ago. In fact, he's a very successful businessman. He was visiting with him, and he had gotten into he had a drinking issue, right? And that causes oftentimes you to have problems with certain agencies like law enforcement.
Hey,
Yeah, and he had them, okay, and so we were talking, and those were some of my earliest court appearances that I got to do in my life, and so, but we were talking about his drinking, and that wasn't our main subject, but that was one of our subjects, and I was just thinking about this today, so. I remember talking to him about his drinking, and he said he was convinced. You guys probably are way ahead of the story, but he was convinced that drinking for him was a good thing, and that he needed it. Does that sound like anybody you guys know? And yes, there's been some issues, problems, legal expenses and problems and stuff, but it still wasn't that big of a problem. Can you say blind spot?
Behind,
I think I have a lot of those.
Yeah, well, when we got them, we got them. And so I was wanting to try to help him see around that. And I asked him, I said, well, you have a younger brother. Would you want him to do the same thing that you're doing? He said, absolutely not. I said, well, that's an interesting answer. It's good for you, but not for him. And he didn't disagree with that statement. And I think he got a better handle on his drinking, because actually he never had any more legal problems. He did go ahead and one of his issues was his needing to get through college, and he did go ahead and get through college, and he's made a lot of very good decisions. I think I think he still has a relationship with alcohol, but so far it hasn't put him in jeopardy that I know about. How about that? Does that make sense? Now, that doesn't mean that,
Right.
but I don't know. But it's different than it used to be, okay? But there's been other tragedies in his family that maybe helped clarify some of those issues. I really can't say much more than that. So, anyway, before I go into the relapse, anybody else have anything to say? Before I go into relapse prevention. You may.
My dad told me, he said, I'm gonna tell you like your grandpa told me, $10 to $100 to find out if a man's worth any good, small price to pay. And he said, do as I say do, not as I do. Because it'll be better for you. And, I always said it's a poor excuse for a man to get all his butt out of bed on time.
I didn't understand that. Say it again.
He said it was a poor excuse of a man who couldn't have his butt out of bed on time to be at work on time to support himself and his family. And, excuses are like a dime a dozen. Everybody's got some, and they're different, but they're the same.
Yeah.
And, it just, he said he wanted to raise up boys better than what he was. My son will be 54 years old. He's been dead and gone for about 7 years now. And I don't think he could have done any better. And I struggle every day trying to live up to it. And, people say, well, you can't just choose to be this way. Well, God gives us all the ability to make choices. And I'm a firm believer that, I can be. It's not easy, but it's not impossible either. And hearing you say that over the loudspeaker out there,
Actually, I didn't say that. John said that, and one of the other guys.
about brought me to my knees.
All right. Okay, well, we're glad you're here. Yeah, and we always have a choice. Always have a choice. And the reality is sometimes we can't make the most healthiest choice that there is, but at least if we make a healthier choice than where we're at, if we continue to make healthier choices, because that's what I always say, make healthier choices or make healthy choices, then we're moving in the right direction. We're clearing it up just a little bit, and that's.
I appreciate y'all allowing me to come in.
Oh, we're glad you're here. We're glad you're here.
My name's Will Criddle.
Well, my name's Steve.
Very nice to meet you.
Well, we're glad you're here, Will. In the last few minutes, I'm not sure what the time says. What, am I way over time already? Oh, I got,
You're about 15 minutes.
okay, I got 15 minutes left.
Yeah, you're about 15
Okay, I just, for some reason, oh, okay, it's because of the light on that one arm, from my perspective. All right, relapse prevention. That's what we've been addressing and trying to address the three stages of relapse. But the first thing, and it's the opening definition of relapse, is that the general meaning of relapse is a deterioration or decline in healthy status after an improvement, okay? After you've gotten better. Now, relapse, we're talking about this, a relapse can be drugs, alcohol, it can be mental health, it can be acting out behaviors, it can be whatever is going on, because this is about life recovery. This is about all the stuff in our life, and when we're struggling to try to get better, to make those healthier choices, like Will was talking about, that and we can do that, but we have to really recognize all the baggage that we're trying to carry along in our life that we really need to either let go of or forgive. We need to recognize the traumas, the hurts, the pains, and recognize that I can let that go. Some people don't want to forgive people because of what people have done to them. They think, well, then they're saying it's okay because if I forgive, then that means I'm saying it's okay. That's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is about you saying, I'm not going to inflict any more pain on myself about what they did to me. I'm not going to judge myself or condemn myself or beat up on myself for all those things. And I'm just not going to punish myself anymore. I'm going to work on being my best friend instead of my worst enemy. What do you think about that? Yeah. And that is such a subtle trap that we set for ourselves, which is another blind spot. And so we have these relapses in whatever. Maybe it's spiritual. Maybe it's physical. Maybe it's with food. Maybe it's with prescription medicine. Maybe it's whatever. Maybe it's pornography. Maybe it's cutting. Maybe it's anger. Maybe it's vengeance, or whatever it is that really puts its hooks into you, and that you find yourself that you're powerless over that stuff. Stuff. That's probably a good word, right? Stuff. Good. That stuff. And that we need to recognize. And that's the reason why we need some help. We need a higher power. We need God. We need support teams to help us to deal with that, because that we have power, but in this particular addictive area, we're powerless because it's got us. And we got to recognize that so that we can do something about it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And according to the research here is that between 40% and 60% of individuals relapse within the first year of treatment. That's a harsh deal, and it's probably even higher than that. But the fact of it is, reality is a lot of people go to treatment that are not really all that serious about treatment, or they don't believe that treatment's really going to help them, but they go for various reasons. Do I? It's a force to go, and it's still, I think it still has some benefit in their life, but the fact of it is, again, it's education and opening up to that, but that's the way it is in everything. You don't have to be transformed, even though you're sitting in the midst of healthy information. You can come to Saturday Night Live or listen to it on the internet, and you can even agree with it because you say, well, that's good information for other people, right?
But I don't need it.
I already know that.
I know that.
I know that.
I've been around the mountain several times.
I've heard that in recovery, and I've heard that in church. I already know that, Well, the question is, are you living that? I'm not trying to be harsh. It's just, do I?
It's kind of like hearing the word.
Yeah.
Like you're right.
Yeah. So we have to, we have, and that's what know the truth, and knowing that truth will set you free. It's not just being exposed to it, but it's to let it become alive in you, and it becomes your truth, not just the truth. Or a truth, yeah. All right, so maybe I ought to start with this in the beginning to be able to cover it.
It wouldn't matter.
It wouldn't matter. You got it. You're right about that. Maybe I ought to start. Well, I think it's really important that in my review that we review it, but we already kind of talked about this a little bit when I asked the question about what was your trigger or your initiation, why you started your journey of addiction or acting out. And I agree, and Maslow with the hierarchies of needs talks about one of our very core issues is wanting to be loved, be accepted, to belong, to be connected. And in fact, babies, if they're not loved and cared for, they will die. They call that a failure to survive syndrome, because there wasn't that human tactile connection, which is what they call it in the medical research areas, but what we usually call is love. Okay, that bonding. And I always thought it was interesting. I'm deviating again, but hey, listen. Well, let's just go ahead and do that. We was talking about Jordan Peterson a while ago. I really like this statement from Jordan Peterson, and I mentioned the word bonding, but he said that new mothers have to there is with their baby, if they're nursing them, the baby has to learn how to nurse, and the mother has to learn how to nurse, and there is a mutual dance that goes on for them to be able to learn how to nurse, for the mother and for the child, and in that process there's a bonding, a connection, because really, in my words, really what's going on is a emotional synchronization between, or maybe even a reestablishing of the synchronization, because the baby is already somewhat synchronized, but the mother, this is a new area. The mother has to learn how to find that place, kind of like in sports or in learning anything new. You have to find that place that you know the skill, but then you have to be able to operate in that skill, like in the sweet spot, or that place of being able to function without thinking about it. Does that make sense? And the trouble is, because of our addictive behavior, because we have a addictive mindset, we have been synchronized with all that toxic stuff, and we automatically move to that rhythm. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? And so what we have to do is we have to learn to be synchronized to a different master rhythm.
Right.
And that feels awkward and hard. I remember a study that I learned many years ago, probably 30 years ago. They talked about a study they did with like grandfather clocks, but things that had a swinging arm on it. And they had a whole wall of clocks with these arms that would swing, and they set them all differently. And given enough time, they all became synchronized to the biggest clock that was in the middle. I've seen it with little metronomes, where they had like 30 or 40 metronomes, and they messed them all up. But in just a few minutes, they all became synchronized. And so we, as we talked about last week, we get to choose our environment. Okay, we choose our environment that's going to cause us to be synchronized to that. We automatically will become synchronized to whatever environment we choose to be in. Shall I say that again?
Right.
We will be synchronized to the environment we choose to be in.
One more time.
Well, we will be synchronized. And the rule is 95% of people, all people, will be synchronized to their environment. Yes, there may be 5%, 3 to 5% that can resist to be synchronized, but the fact of it is 95% will be synchronized to their environment. That's called the Law of Conformity. And it works in all of us, whether we know it or not. And so if we get to choose what environment we're going to be around, and that's what relapse prevention is about. The 3 stages is emotional relapse, mental relapse, and physical relapse. And let's see, there was something in particular that I wanted to go over. Maybe I'll just highlight that one thing instead of going over all of it. The 3 Ps, the signs, maybe it's... Let's do this. I'll go to the very back of the worksheet, touch on it a little bit, and that is the physical relapse. And physical relapse is the final and the hardest part of relapse. You have the emotional relapse, and you have all these signals or signs. Anxiety is one of them, okay? I'm going to back up. One of the suggestions that they have in our recovery plan, and I thought it was really neat, is to Google virtues. Google some virtues and see what the virtues are. Now, they're the Bible speaks about 7 different virtues. They listed 20 different virtues, but these virtues, and you know what they are, and you can look at the 9 gifts of the Holy Spirit in the Bible, but you can look at these different virtues, whether it's just 5 or 20, and I think you look at them and you read them and you ask yourself, do I want these virtues? Do I want to have these virtues? Do I think this is a good idea to have these type of virtues? I'm trying to think of some, but honesty, one was cleanness, I remember that one. One was integrity, yes. There were several, hey, who wants to Google virtues? Here, let me look at it here. Actually, that was one of my things I was going to do, is have you guys Google virtues. No. Virtues.
That's morals and live by them.
Yeah, well, that would be some of that. Virtues. 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 Did anybody get it yet? I don't know if I'm not getting it.
Virtues.
You want to read some of them, John? You got them?
What are 7 virtues? It says, humility, charity, chastity, gratitude, temperance, patience, and diligence.
Those are good ones.
4 virtues in life are prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance.
I've got one here. It's courage, temperance, patience, justice, generosity, kindness. Does anybody disagree with any of these so far? Truthfulness, charity, prudence, diligence, integrity, wisdom, honesty, sincerity, self-control, which against such there is no law, right? And honor, caring, perseverance, forgiveness, right? And so I thought that was that could be a good study for an individual to look at virtues, and if we can line up or at least get better with some of those virtues, then wouldn't that be in our best interest? So, anyway, I thought that was a good suggestion, and that pretty much ate up the rest of my time there. So, any questions or comments before I close? You look like you had a question or getting ready to say something. When you look like you're going to say something, then may the Lord bless you and keep you, and may His face shine upon you and give you His peace. And of course, always make healthy choices, right? See you next